All right, let's jump right into a topic that it sounds completely made up. We're talking about wars that lasted for centuries, not just decades, but for entire eras. Conflict that literally became a generational inheritance. It sounds impossible, right? And that's really the big mind-bending question here. How on earth can a single state of war outlive the empires that were fighting it, outlast the technology they used, or even the languages they spoke? So let's break that down. But before we get into the how, let's just sit with the what for a second. 781 years. That is the unbelievable length of the longest war in recorded history. To put that into perspective for you, that is more than 3 times as long as the United States has even existed. Wow. So to figure out how this is even possible, we've got to look at the evidence. We're going to start by examining what I'm calling the 700-year club, a couple of key conflicts that just completely redefine what we think of as time. Okay, first up is our record holder, the Reconquista. This was a nearly 8-century-long struggle. Think about that. 8 centuries for Christian kingdoms to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula from the Moorish states that had been ruling there for generations. Now, what's so wild here is just the sheer multi-generational scale of it all. It kicks off way back in 711 when an Islamic Berber army first crosses into Iberia, and for centuries, they're the dominant power. But then you get this huge turning point in the 11th century. The caliphate that was in charge just kind of falls apart, and that gives the Christian kingdoms an opening to start pushing back. And that slow, grinding pushback went on and on, all the way until 1492, when Granada, the very last stronghold, finally fell. And if you want to really wrap your head around that timescale, get this. The entire Renaissance, the age of Da Vinci, Michelangelo, the printing press, this complete revolution in art and science and culture, all of that happened during the final leg of this one war. A whole new era for Western civilization was born and grew up while this one conflict was still going. Okay, now let's look at a slightly different model of a long war. This one gives us a really crucial clue for our whole investigation. We're talking about the Anglo-French Wars. So this rivalry, it lasted for an incredible 706 years. But here's the key detail, the thing that changes everything. This was not 7 centuries of nonstop 24/7 fighting. The source material is super clear about this. It was actually a series of really intense conflicts, but they were often separated by long stretches of, well, let's call it uneasy peace. And that is the secret to how a war can last forever. Yeah, that one detail, that it's not continuous fighting. That's the aha moment. That's the answer to our puzzle. It gives us a way to understand not just the Anglo-French wars, but all of these unbelievably long conflicts. So let's actually put a name to this concept. I mean, this is probably the question you've been asking this whole time, right? Did people really just wake up every single morning for 700 years in a state of all-out war? The answer is a clear, definitive no. The reality is something historians sometimes call a hyper-long war. It's not one single unbroken event. It's more like an enduring rivalry, a deep-seated grudge over land or religion or power that fuels a whole series of separate conflicts. The big overarching goal just gets passed down from generation to generation, ready to reignite the fighting whenever tensions flare up again. And once you get that definition, you suddenly start seeing these conflicts all over history. The scale is just staggering. And the 2 examples we've looked at, they are just the tip of the iceberg. Let's do a little rapid-fire round to show you what I mean. How about the Roman-Persian Wars, a 681-year clash of titans? This was literally the 2 great superpowers of the ancient world locked in a struggle for centuries. Or you have the Byzantine-Bulgarian Wars, a brutal 675-year fight where control over the Balkans was fought for, then lost, then reconquered, generation after generation. And of course, the Crusades. We think of them as one thing, but they weren't one war. They were a whole series of religious conflicts that, when you add them all up, spanned more than 6 centuries. Now, I know this can all feel like ancient history, but the shadows these conflicts cast are incredibly long. Let's talk for a minute about why these ancient wars still have a huge impact on the world we're living in right now. As the source material points out, the effect is really wide-reaching. These weren't just battles over a piece of land. These were the events that forged national identities, that created deep cultural divides, and that redrew the map of the world in ways we can still see today. I mean, just look at these examples. The Reconquista directly shaped the modern cultural DNA of Spain and Portugal. That Anglo-French rivalry? It spilled over into the New World, famously leading France to help out in the American Revolution. And historians pretty much all agree that the religious tensions kicked up by the Crusades, well, they still echo in our modern geopolitics. And that kind of brings us to our final thought. If wars that ended 500 years ago are still shaping our world, it forces you to ask a pretty powerful question. When you look around at the long-term rivalries and conflicts of our own time, which ones are setting the stage for the world of 2700? It's a sobering thought for sure, and a powerful lens to see our present through.